Hi, this is Dr. Todd Cage again. And in today's Mental Minute, we're going to talk about vulnerability. Now, that's not something we typically talk about in sports, in business, in terms of performance. When we talk about high performing or high performers, we don't typically think of the word vulnerability. But I'm going to tell you right here, right now, that vulnerability is a very important part of being a high performer. In fact, some of the most high performing people I've ever worked with, whether it be athletes, salespeople, business people, just people trying to get better in whatever aspect of their life, are vulnerable. And this is why. When you're vulnerable, you're honest. You're honest with yourself, and vulnerability means you're honest with somebody else. Now, I'm not saying you go around and you say to run down the streets and you tell people, hey, I've screwed up and this is my mistake. But you take a trusted person or some trusted people and you're vulnerable with them and say, I'm struggling in this area. I can guarantee you're going to get better. So many times in the world of athletics, and particularly with males, it's even more so, is this whole idea of vulnerability is bad. It's a negative thing. You don't show weakness. We hear messages all the time. And yes, is grit, is resilience, is mental toughness all important parts of life in sports and performance and whatever we do? Absolutely 100%. But vulnerability is a strength. It is a form of resilience. It is a form of grit. Because when you're vulnerable, you're kind of bearing your heart, your soul. You're bearing a mistake maybe that you've made or something you don't know. You're stripping away all of the mask. You're stripping away all of this idea that we have to be perfect, all this entire idea that we can't make mistakes, that we can't screw up. Well, when we hide from that, and hide that from the world, and hide that from coaches, and hide that from teammates, that's exactly when we don't get better. Because how could you get better at something you're hiding from? You can't. And so what my challenge is to anybody listening to this is that vulnerability is truly a strength, and it's something we have to be intentional about doing. Now, again, trusted people, and there's an appropriate place and time. But so many times I see some of my own students go to their coaches, and I will watch them tell their coaches, everything's going great. I'm really getting what you're talking about. When it could have been just an hour before or a week before, they were telling me the exact opposite. So they had to present themselves as perfect. They had to present themselves. They can't show weakness in front of their coach. Otherwise, their coach might think that they're not ready for the position. And again, there's a time and place for this, but how are you going to get better? As a coach, coaches need to be vulnerable. They need to share with other colleagues, other coaches to say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing with this. Head coaches particularly, they need to say, hey, with an assistant coach to say, hey, this is something I need your feedback on. Or sometimes just a private mental coach like myself. And there's plenty of us around. And so by being vulnerable, you take so much psychological weight off you, so much emotional weight, so much distraction, so much shame and guilt that prevents high performance. So I want to challenge you. Vulnerability is a strength. One of the hardest things when I worked with athletes and people from all walks of life over the years is when they're struggling with an addiction and they fall off the wagon. Let's say they take a drink. One of the hardest things for them to do is go into those rooms the next meeting and say, I took a drink, or I had a relapse, or I had a binge this weekend. Okay? It's also one of the most powerful things they do, because it's then that they grow with so much strength. And that's what I'm talking about here, is that every time you're vulnerable, you are going to get stronger. You are going to get better. So every time you're vulnerable, just know that it's not easy. Never said this was going to be easy, but you're going to get better faster. Now, if you're interested in this and more podcasts, more videos, and these topics, and you want to become better mentally, emotionally, and become a high performer, feel free to go on the website, drtoddkays.com or drtoddkaysgolf.com. I'll see you next time.